Everyone in the mansion feared the billionaire's fiancé. Until one maid refused to. The mansion never slept, but everyone inside moved like ghosts. Servants lowered their voices, eyes fixed on the marble floor, afraid a single mistake would summon her name. The billionaire's fiancé ruled the house without raising her voice. Rumors followed her like perfume. She was said to fire maids for breathing wrong, blacklist drivers with one phone call, and smile while doing it. No one dared test the stories. Every footstep echoed with tension. A dropped spoon could end a career. A glance could be misunderstood. Kindness, here, was a risk no one took. Power lived in silk dresses and cold silence. Yet behind closed doors, whispers grew sharper. Who was she before the mansion? Why did fear follow her so closely? And what unseen line was everyone terrified she would cross next? No one imagined how quickly fear would turn into silence once the first rule was broken forever. The new maid arrived before sunrise, clutching a small bag that held everything she owned. Her shoes were worn thin, her uniform borrowed, her hands rough from work that never paid enough. The mansion's gates closed behind her with a sound that felt final. Other servants studied her from a distance, already whispering warnings. Don't look up. Don't speak unless spoken to. Stay invisible. She listened, nodded, then kept working. When the fiancé passed through the hall, conversations died heads bowed. Breath stopped. But the new maid did not flinch. She stepped aside calmly, eyes steady, respectful, unafraid. Not defiant, just unmoved. That quiet courage unsettled everyone more than rebellion ever could. In a house built on fear, her calm felt dangerous, like a crack forming in glass that had never been tested before. It would not stay unnoticed. It happened during afternoon tea, when silence mattered more than precision. The maid placed the cup on the table, handle turned the wrong way. A small error, a deadly one. Every servant froze, already mourning her job. The fiancé's fingers stopped midair. Slowly, she looked up. The room tightened around that gate. This was how it always began. Do you know the rule? She asked, voice calm, almost bored. The maid swallowed, then lifted the cup and corrected it. Yes, she said softly. And I'm sorry. No trembling, no tears, no begging. The answer landed heavier than defiance. Whispers died instantly. The fiancé studied her, eyes searching for fear and finding none. Just dignity, just restraint. For the first time, power met something it couldn't immediately crush. The fiancé's smile never reached her eyes as she dismissed the maid with a nod, already deciding something that would change them both. The shift was subtle at first. Conversations stopped when she entered a room. Chairs were moved away from her at meals. Tasks she never touched were suddenly blamed on her. A missing cloth, a cracked plate. Fear needed a target, and she was convenient. No one defended her. They were too busy protecting themselves. At night, whispers traveled faster than footsteps. Stories about the fiancé grew darker with each retelling. A driver who lost everything after one complaint. A nanny sent home without pay. A cousin who vanished from society after a single argument. The maid listened, silent, carrying extra work without protest. She cleaned longer, slept less, and kept her head high. She had broken no rule, yet punishment followed her anyway. Isolation settled in like dust, heavy and unavoidable. And somewhere above her, power watched, pleased that fear was doing its work for her without mercy or pause. Late at night, the mansion sounded different. No whispers, no footsteps, only the quiet pressure of expectations hanging in the air. In her private sitting room, the fiancé stood alone, heels discarded, makeup untouched by sleep. Her reflection stared back, flawless and exhausted. She straightened a photo frame, then straightened it again. Perfection was not a choice. It was survival. Every decision, every marriage promise, every smile was watched by a world that paid for control with wealth. As she turned, she noticed the maid in the doorway, frozen with a tray. Their eyes met. No words passed between them, just recognition. Not kindness, not anger. Something unsettled. The maid lowered her gaze and left. The fiancé remained still, pulse quickening for reasons she refused to name. Fear was useful. Distance was safer. Yet long after the hallway emptied, the maid's calm expression lingered, threatening the armor she had spent years building around her carefully protected heart that never rested. The act was small, almost invisible, but it landed like thunder. The maid entered the locked music room at dawn, a place no one touched. Dust covered the piano, keys yellowed by time. She cleaned it gently, repaired a loose bench, and left a single cloth folded neatly on top. By evening, the fiancé knew. In front of everyone, her voice cut sharp. Who told you to go in there? Silence collapsed the hall. The maid stepped forward. No one, she said. I saw it needed care. Gasps followed. Faces turned away. The fiancé's eyes hardened, her expression carefully cruel. She reminded the house who held power, listing rules, consequences, history. The performance was flawless. Fear returned instantly, but the maid did not lower her head. She did not apologize. She stood still, hands steady, accepting whatever would come next. That was the moment punishment became inevitable. Kindness had crossed a line power could not forgive, and everyone felt the storm approaching before darkness swallowed what little mercy remained inside. The confrontation came without warning. The fiancé summoned the maid to the grand hall, where every chandelier watched like an audience. "You think silence makes you innocent," she said, voice tight with control. "But I see manipulation." The maid's chest tightened, yet she did not step back. "I see fear," she replied. The room shattered. Servants froze, breath caught between jobs and loyalty. "You cross boundaries," the fiancé snapped. "You want attention." "No," the maid said. "I want respect." The word echoed, dangerous and clean. Years of swallowed anger flickered across the fiancé's face. She accused the maid of arrogance, of forgetting her place, of biting the hand that fed her. Each accusation landed like a slap meant to humiliate. Still, the maid stood firm. "This house survives on silence," she said quietly, "and silence hurts people." The mansion felt smaller, air thinning with every heartbeat. One order could erase the maid's future. One sentence could destroy her dignity forever. The fiancée raised her hand, deciding whether to end this now or make an example no one would ever forget. The silence after her raised hand stretched too long. The fiancée lowered it slowly. "Why that room?" she asked, quieter now. The maid hesitated, then spoke. "Because someone once loved music enough to hide in there when the world felt cruel." The words struck deeper than accusation. The fiancé's face drained of color. No one knew that memory. Not the press. Not her future husband. Not this house. "My mother played," the maid continued. "She cleaned houses like this. She told me about a girl who locked herself away to survive a family that only valued money." The hall tilted. That story had been buried with lawyers and time. The fiancée saw herself at 16, poor, invisible, learning that softness invited harm. "You don't belong here," she whispered, unsure if it was a threat or a confession. The maid met her gaze. "Neither did you," she said gently. For the first time, authority cracked. The fiancé realized the maid wasn't trespassing. She was holding up a mirror. And mirrors were dangerous when built from truths you spent lifetime running from. Change did not arrive with an apology. It arrived in decision. The next morning, the maid returned to work, untouched. No dismissal. No punishment. Whispers spread faster than fear ever had. When a senior servant tried to assign her extra duties, the fiancé stopped it with a single look. Later, wages were adjusted. Schedules softened. A driver was rehired. Small injustices, once ignored, were quietly undone. No announcement was made. Power didn't need to explain itself. But the house felt different, lighter. People spoke again. Laughter, careful at first, slipped back into corners long ruled by silence. The maid noticed eyes no longer avoiding her. Plates were shared. Help was offered. Fear was losing its grip. From the balcony, the fiancé watched it all unfold. She said nothing, yet something in her posture eased, as if protecting others was easier than protecting herself. Transformation had begun, not as redemption, but as restraint learned too late to undo the past completely. Iron gates no longer echoed with dread. The mansion learned a new rhythm, one built on respect instead of silence. The fiancée was no longer the woman everyone whispered about. She became someone people watched, measured, and slowly trusted. Power still followed her, but it moved with care. The maid continued her work, unchanged on the surface. Yet her purpose was clear now. She had not come to challenge authority, but to remind it of its roots. In quiet moments, the fiancée listened to stories she once avoided. She learned names. She asked questions. Loneliness faded where control once lived. Strength revealed itself not in punishment, but in restraint. When the maid finally left the mansion, her bag just as small as the day she arrived, the house stood taller. Some lessons were meant to stay, not people. Kindness had disarmed power, and power, at last, had learned to listen before judging. That truth lingered long after the gates closed.